Hey everyone, I just had to show you my baby boy here. It's on my lap before I begin this. Hi BookTube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading. This review video has been hanging over my head and I just really want to do it before I forget absolutely everything I loved about The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. And I am specifically reviewing this book because it recently won the Pulitzer Prize. And so I have read all the books that have won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And so when this was announced in June, I was able to get a copy of it relatively soon. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit about it. I'm going to link to some other reviews down below. Brian from Bookish did a review of this. His review does contain spoilers, just so you know. But then I found some other channels. Slanted Spines did a review of this book, and so yeah, I just want you to be able to see some other perspectives. I am by no means a Native American expert or I don't know, have some sort of fantastic insight into Native American culture. I took a class in college, but Louise Erdrich is just a writer that I've admired for so long, and one of the writers that I really, really wanted to win the Pulitzer Prize. She's the first Native American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize, but she is just an incredible writer, and doesn't matter what her gender is or her tribe or even the fact that she's a Native American. Like that's not the point. The point is she's a tremendous American writer and definitely deserves. I have thought many times, I was sure that, whatever new book she'd come out with, it was going to win the Pulitzer. And so I was greatly happy when this finally came around, and it gave me an excuse to read another Louise Erdrich novel. So I have read 4 of her books now, including The Night Watchman. I've read Love Medicine, Plague of Doves, and a very, very long time ago in college read Tracks. Most of Louise Erdrich's books are incredibly depressing and sad. They're still written beautifully, but they're really like rip your heart out. And this is the first book by her that I have read that I felt a little more hopeful, maybe at the end of it. Not completely, but a little more like it wasn't quite maybe as like, again, like ripping your heart out of your chest sort of thing, reading this book. So I am gonna share some spoilers, but I will wait more towards the end of my review, and it's gonna be a fairly short review. So I will let you know when I'm going to start spoilers, because if this is on your TBR, I don't want to ruin it for you. So this is about two primary characters. One is a young woman who recently graduated from high school. Her name is Patrice, and the other character is Thomas Washashk. I'm so sorry. I don't know exactly how to say his last name, but Thomas. And he is the night watchman at the jewel-bearing plant that Patrice works at. They are both Chippewa and part of the Turtle Mountain Reservation. Now, Thomas's part of the story is very much concerned with a piece of American history that I didn't know anything about, that I was shocked to find out about. And again, I think that's one of the things that the Pulitzer can really do, is to shed light on books that address pieces of American history that like we are not taught. I never knew anything about this until I read this book, and frankly, it's horrifying. So I'm just going to read you a little bit from the book about what's called the Termination Bill. On August 1st, 1953, so not talking too terribly long ago, people, the United States Congress announced House Concurrent Resolution 108, a bill to abrogate nation-to-nation treaties which had been made with American Indian nations for, quote, as long as the grass grows and the rivers flow. The announcement called for the eventual termination of all tribes and the immediate termination of 5 tribes, including the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. Now, Louise Erdrich's grandfather, his name was Patrick Gourneau, and he inspired the character of Thomas in this book. The senator who proposed this resolution, his name was Arthur Watkins, and he was a real person. I mean, he was actually the one to introduce it, and I believe later in the book, when there is a kind of a hearing about the termination bill, it's sometimes called the Emancipation Bill, which I think is, and the characters are frustrated by that too. Like, it's not emancipation. They want to take away all the rights of the Native Americans, and mainly they really want their land. And Louise Erdrich's grandfather said the termination bill was one of the worst things to happen to Native Americans. So Thomas is kind of the head of the Tribal Advisory Council. They don't have any actual power. They can make recommendations to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but there's very little authority granted to them. And so he spends all of his days trying to talk to people, writing, going to meetings, trying to communicate to the people in Washington, D.C. that no, like, you can't take our land away. Like if you take away our land, like, we don't have anything. We have nothing left. You still definitely get the sense in 1950s of the poverty on the reservation, and the struggles, but also the sense of community, the sense of sharing things. So anyway, and then as the night watchman for the jewel bearing plant, so he's awake all night, making sure that because the jewel bearing plant, like, it's used. I think they had a department. It was an actual company that they had. I think they had a Department of Defense contract. I could be wrong about that, but they also made like the pieces for the inside of really schwanky watches, but the drill bits were diamonds. so they needed someone to make sure nobody broke into the place at night, and so that's Thomas's job. And while he's there, he spends a lot of time writing letters. And Louise Erdrich said her own grandfather, like, she used a lot of the material from his letters in creating the story. Sometimes he got 12 hours of sleep in an entire week. So he was really worn down by the termination bill. Patrice, a young woman, she's often called Pixie, which she does not like. She's a fierce, strong character. I really, really liked her. And there's a lot of things that happen to her that, well, for one thing, one of the parts of the story that I thought was really interesting is that before the story begins, Patrice's sister Vera has left with her boyfriend to Minneapolis, and it's the big city, and then they haven't heard from her in like 5 months or something like that, and so they're really concerned. They're really worried. Anyway, so here, this is just a little bit from a scene. They ask Gerald, another member of the tribe, to he does a thing where his spirit will go out of his body and go looking for people and help people find people who've left the reservation, and let their family members know where they are and how to find them, that kind of thing. So and then Patrice's mother is also in the scene. Her name is Zanette. Zanette kept a fresh bough of pine over the door. This morning she had burned pine needles with cedar and bare root. The dim house was fragrant with the smoke. Gerald was sitting at the table with a few other people. They were drinking tea and laughing. In between jokes, they were discussing the ceremony with Zanette, how it would be run, and who might show up, with other questions, how long they should wait, if they should set up the sweat lodge too, what colors of cloth to tie in the branches and in what order, who would lead on who would lead on each song. They teased one another, details. Patrice never talked about this part of her family's life with those who would not understand. For one thing, they wouldn't get how everything was funny, but the colors and the details reminded her of how the Catholics chose their colors and fixated on their sacraments, as if these things mattered to spirits or the Holy Ghost. Anyway, so Gerald's spirit goes out to look for her sister Vera, and they don't get I won't go into it, but they don't get very many details. So Patrice saves up enough money so that she can go to Minneapolis to look for her sister. She goes, and I think her story, especially her story in Minneapolis, really talks about, so on the one hand, Thomas is fighting this bill so that the Native Americans can hold on to their land that is sacred to them, that means everything to them. And at the same time, Patrice and Brian from Bookish does a great job of talking about Patrice representing like the future and like the what positive things can happen to Native Americans. But I really think that when Patrice goes to Minneapolis, it's a great example of how our government does not care what happens to Native American women. There is absolutely no record of how many Native American women in the United States are missing. There's no follow-up, no search, nothing like that. We have no idea. We have no clue. And you can easily see how that can happen when you read about what Patrice experiences in Minneapolis. But she's just she's just a strong woman. So now I'm gonna go into some spoilers. So if you want to stop there, that's fine. But one of the things, so here was the only problem I had with the book, is that it ends to me, and I know not everybody feels this way, but it ends very abruptly. So it essentially just says like the Chippewa and the Turtle Mountain Reservation, like they did not lose their land. And I wanted more about that. I wanted more conversation. I wanted to know more about how they found out and, details along those lines, I guess. I'm not saying that the book, I don't know. It just felt like it kind of fell off the edge at the end. And that was my real struggle with it. Because like I said, I just wanted to know so much more. But I really loved the characters in this book, and there's a lot of characters that I haven't even mentioned, who are fantastic. And I really also loved the Native American spiritualism that Patrice gives us kind of an insight into in her through her character. So this book for me is probably 4.5 stars, and I rounded it up to 5 on Goodreads. So I would love to hear your thoughts. If you've read this book, please feel free to leave a comment down below. BookTube, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.